I want to start with, I want to go back in time on this so that we can all kind of understand a little bit more context of the significance of what is this guy's name now? What is he calling himself?
Ahmad al-Shara now.
What was it before? Al-Golani.
Abu Muhammad al-Jolani.
Al-Golani, right, okay. $10 million bounty on his head at one point by the US government.
Mhm.
Now he's
Yes.
sitting in the White House.
Yes.
I want to go back in time. Let's go back to when you were in Syria, before you had left, before all of the wave of refugees left Syria, many of them to Germany, millions. How many people have left Syria at this point?
So we have around 7 million internally displaced people and 5 million refugees.
Okay.
So we're talking about half the country. Of 24 million, 12 million are either internally displaced or refugees all around the world.
So when this all started, what year would you say it started? 2014?
This was in March. It was in March 2011 when the
2011, okay.
first demonstrations started against the former government, and I've seen multiple of these demonstrations in Syria, and it was quite clear from the beginning that the nature of the demonstrations were not like people were not calling for democracy. Yes, some people were saying we want freedom, but when you ask them what do you want seriously, one of the first demands of these demonstrators was that when they go into police station, they occupy it, they go to the balcony and they say, our first demand is we want to close the mixed gender schools in Syria. We no longer want for women and men to interact. And the second demand is we want for women who wear burqa to be able to teach our children, because in Syria, under the secular government, people were free to wear a burqa, a niqab, a hijab, or whatever they like. But if you want to teach a kid at school, this kid has to see the face of the teacher so they can interact together. So that was the point of making a law that whoever is teaching cannot basically come to school completely, let's say, covered, because one of the main elements of teaching is that this kid can interact with the teacher and learn from this interaction. It's a social and human interaction. So those were the first demands. And of course, we have the regional countries, they have formed political bodies for this opposition, mainly in Turkey, in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, in regional countries. And they promoted this as a democratic revolution against a dictator, Assad. And we have to be honest with our audience, Syria was not a democracy. It was a political authoritarianism in a region where almost everyone is political authoritarian. It's not like Syria was the exception for the rule in the region. Syria was more progressive than neighboring countries because it imposed a secular government. And for your respected audience to understand, secularism in Syria means that the religion cannot play a role in politics. That's it. Religion, keep it in the mosque, keep it in the church, keep it in the synagogue. That's it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, all people are free to practice their religious rituals. So they wanted to change that. They wanted to create more theocratical country, not a democracy. That was the smokescreen. That was the masking. And the evidence for it is in front of our eyes. When I said that this is a non-democratic regressive revolution, people said Kevork is an Assadist. He is repeating Assadist talking points. But now we have clear-cut evidence that the person who is now the self-selected president of Syria, he didn't come with elections. He just appointed himself a president of the country, and he is the leader of the Al-Qaeda offshoot in Syria between 2011 and 2017. In 2017, he rebranded himself and said, I no longer play part in Al-Qaeda and I wanted to become a reformed rebel. But the truth of the matter is, this was a PR move in order for him to get more international legitimacy, because nobody would like to bring someone who is still part of Al-Qaeda into power in Syria. And he was the strongest force on the ground. And let's remember, Kim, if you are in Syria and you want to oust the former regime, and the former regime is a secular regime, you will not be able, as, let's say, outside intelligence secret services, to come and convince, let's say, the secularists or the left wings or the nationalists or the pan-Arabists to carry arms and fight against the government. This is how they see the government should be anyways. So the people who had the most bitterness against the former regime were the Islamists, the people who would like to establish an Islamic state in the country, right? In their own understanding of whatever is this Islamic state. So in my opinion, the American planners here, they knew very well that the driving force behind the insurgency in Syria were the Islamists, but those were the options they had. They didn't have, let's say, some revolutionary figures in Syria to give them weapons. Those were the people ready to die for a cause. So they supported the people of Golani and many other people like Golani, and now they are in power. And after he comes to power, the first thing he does is he says, look, we ran on the platform and said we want to establish an Islamic state and we will march into Jerusalem, we will liberate Palestine and all these things. But once he comes to power, he says, now I want to do a U-turn. Because now I'm a reformed person, I'm a civilized person. I no longer want to liberate Palestine. In the contrary, I would like to normalize ties with Israel, and says to Israel that, look, Habibis, we're not going to attack you. We're friends. And he says, we share mutual enemies to Israel. And you don't need to be a philosopher to understand who are the mutual enemies, and those are Iran and Hezbollah. Because he's telling Israel, we have mutual interests, we can cooperate. And accordingly, I would like to open up with the US, and the US will broker this deal between me and you. And this is what Golani said yesterday on Fox News. He said, I hope that Donald Trump would help me reach a deal with Israel. But let's be serious. Donald Trump is not some neutral broker for a deal between Syria and Israel. Donald Trump is a pro-Israel, pro-Zionist president.
Yeah.
And he recognized a few years ago during his first presidency the Golan Heights as sovereign Israeli territories. So how is he going to ask Donald Trump to be a neutral broker in this case? It's just beyond me, because unfortunately, whatever you say nowadays, it's too late. Syria has been fractured. Syria is completely destroyed. Half the country is between refugees and internally displaced. The economy is completely destroyed. And whoever is going to fill this vacuum on the ground are going to be these Islamists. But on a higher level, when we speak about the economy, for example, the foreign corporations will come and they will rebuild the country. It's a $200 to $300 billion investment. They will make hell of a money out of Syria. But the people need to understand that the Syrians will not benefit much from this, because this is the economic hitman formula, that Syria had almost zero external debt before the war. And now it has over 300 billion debt because of the reconstruction, right, that they need. So they will have to get loans from where? From the IMF. And that's why Golani met with her name is Georgina or something, the head of the IMF. And she called him, Mr. President. it's like I'm watching some surreal movie. The head of the IMF is happy to receive Golani because they want to give him loans. And these loans are politically conditioned. But these loans are like a chain in the neck of Syria, because for decades, Syria will not be able to pay the debt.
Right. When you were in Syria at that time, and all the people were there before they started fleeing, and the U.S. was clearly backing anybody other than Bashar al-Assad, right? I mean, it was very clear the United States wanted Assad gone.
Yeah.
what was the message they sold? I mean, you were there on the ground. You were talking to these dissidents, but the dissidents were wanting an Islamic caliphate, basically, to be
Mhm.
marched in. But what was being sold, and did the majority of Syrians buy what was being sold, which is democracy and freedom, and Bashar al-Assad is this brutal dictator, and what were they told to go along with it? What were people told was going to be the outcome? What was going to be the beautiful new Syria that they were going to be gaining after the United States and others oust Assad?
I would say something, Kim, and I really don't want to sound arrogant in this, but I truly think that nobody can claim to be an expert on the Middle East or Syria if this person doesn't speak Arabic or follows the Arabic media outlets.
Mhm.
Because what we hear in the Western mainstream press is something, but what we watch in Arabic media outlet is completely something else. And in my opinion, the Americans and the Brits, they are very, very good in psychological operations, whether in their own countries or in the outside world. And accordingly, they have tasked several media outlets in the region because they are owned by their governments. For example, Al Jazeera Arabic. For example, it belongs to Qatar. They task Al Arabiya Arabic, which belongs to Saudi Arabia, and many other mini outlets that spawned after the Syrian war on social media platforms, short videos, etc. And the vast majority of these outlets were propagandizing the people that once Assad is gone, you will get the utopia, everything you wish for. Oh, those are rivers of honey, everywhere. This is how they spoke about this war. But on a higher level, because they need fighters, right? You need fighters to go to Syria. And I would like to argue and say, had they had enough popular support in Syria, they wouldn't have needed tens of thousands of multinational jihadists from all around the world. If the Syrians said, we want to get rid of Assad, and we are the majority, right? If they were the majority, Assad would have gone in 2011. But because they didn't have much popular support, they had to turn this through these media outlets in the region into a sectarian or holy war. So, copying the Afghanistan formula, in order to bring these brainless Takfiri jihadists from all around the world, you have to declare a holy war against an infidel secular regime. So, you have tens of thousands of multinational jihadists coming to Syria because they want to wage a holy war against Assad. And these countries include, of course, from Europe, from Central Asia, from Chechnya, from Saudi Arabia, from the Arab world. But this was not possible without the indoctrination, without the encouragement, without the routes. Like they opened the logistics, they opened the borders, the airports for the people, and salaries. Because there is no one who would like to come from Kazakhstan or from Chechnya or from Xinjiang, from the Uyghurs to Syria and fight for free. Like, how would they survive? So there is someone paying for their money. Somebody is propagandizing the people. And on a more local level, many Syrian people, unfortunately speaking, they were also propagandized. And imagine the level of absurdity. Like, if you're an American, if, God forbidden, in the future, there was a scenario under which you see clearly as a critical thinker that your country is demising, your country is dying, and there was the last straw that somebody came and hit your country and you see it's bleeding and it's going to die, you're not going to celebrate in the streets, right? You're going to say, people, what are we doing? I mean, put politics aside, maybe we hate our government, but we don't want to kill our nation, right? We are opposition to the politics of the government, but we object destroying our infrastructure. Like, if I told you, Kim, I give you money, you have to go and destroy the air defenses in your country, would you do that? You wouldn't do that, because although you oppose your government, you will not destroy your country's capabilities or your country's infrastructure, the electrical generators, the water dams, the oil fields, for example, the gas fields, right? Mm-hmm. But these brainwashed people, including Syrians, one of the first things they did, they had maps of the air defenses of Syria. They destroyed the air defenses of the country. So what I'm trying to say is, although some people had grievances against the government, they couldn't differentiate between the state, that even if Assad is gone, those are state assets that they have to preserve, and the government itself. So they rose against the state, but not against the government of the former government. And that's why you saw Israel having air superiority against Syria during the past decade and bombing Syria regularly, because most of the time, every time Syrian army is fighting against some of these groups, they're like cherry picking the radars, the air defenses, the strategic assets of the country. And after all, also taking over the oil fields, right? So this is what I say, a very orchestrated and structured destruction of the Syrian state, but not the regime. Because now the regime is gone. But have we built a democratic regime? No. Which means we replaced a political authoritarianism, which gives the people social and religious rights and economic rights, with a more religious, more regressive, theocratic authoritarianism. So we didn't even upgrade the system. And plus, we don't have state, because now, without foreign investors, we will not be able to generate electricity, although the country has oil. How is that possible? Because the Americans occupy the oil fields. So they come and say, we will give you electricity 24/24, but you will buy gas from Azerbaijan. And if Azerbaijan brings gas to the country, now the people look at the bills and they say, what is this? I used to pay, let's say, $10 per month for my electricity bill, and now $100. How is that even possible? Like our salaries didn't increase, but the prices increased, skyrocketed. And the reason for it is because now they no longer have national economy. They are getting their services from the outside. So Syria moved from a country which can produce and export into a country that is dependent on outside investment. And this is what happened in Yugoslavia. Like what they did in Yugoslavia is just the sheer destruction of the state and its economy, because national economies or sovereign economies are intolerable under the still unipolar world. As long as you have a unipolar world and the dollar dependency, it is not allowed for countries to develop outside the dollar system. It's not allowed for the countries to develop outside the manufacturing and technological capacities of the West. If you try to do it by yourself, you will be punished. So that was the sin, in my opinion, of Syria.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.